I still remember the exact shade of red his face turned when the cabin door swung open. There we were, me and Owen Carter, her husband, standing in the doorway of my mountain retreat in the Aspen Mountains, champagne in hand, watching as my husband Nathan Brooks scrambled to cover himself with the throw blanket I'd hand-knitted for our 5th anniversary. Behind him, partially hidden, was Clara Hayes, his colleague, my supposed friend and Owen's wife, her eyes wide with panic, mascara smeared across her cheeks. "Surprise," I said with a smile that felt foreign on my face. My voice didn't even shake. "My name is Isabella Reed." Sometimes I surprise myself with how calm I can be when my world is burning down around me, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. You're listening to this story on Renvenge Zinnia, where raw truths are unveiled by those who live them. Before we begin, please subscribe and share where you're watching in the comments. 3 months earlier, I was the picture of blissful ignorance. Nathan and I had been married for 12 years, college sweethearts who'd built a life together that looked perfect from the outside. I ran my interior design business from home while he climbed the corporate ladder at his investment firm. We had our beautiful cabin in the Aspen Mountains that we'd purchased 6 years ago, my dream project that I'd poured my heart into renovating. It was our sanctuary, our escape from city life. We'd met Owen and Clara at a charity gala in Houston 2 years ago. They seemed like the perfect couple to befriend, both successful, charming, with the same love for hiking and weekend getaways. We started doing dinners, then weekends together. Clara and I would spend hours discussing design projects while Nathan and Owen talked investments and fly fishing. It felt like one of those rare adult friendships where everyone genuinely connected. I remember sitting across from Clara at brunch, watching her laugh at something Nathan said, thinking how lucky I was to have found another couple we both enjoyed, how naive I was. The first sign came in the form of a text message. Nathan's phone chimed while he was in the shower, and I glanced over. Not snooping, just an automatic response. The preview showed, "Can't wait for our next escape. I'm still feeling you." The sender was labeled V-Work Project. I put the phone down, heart suddenly racing. Just a colleague being inappropriate, I told myself. I didn't mention it. I didn't want to be that wife. Then came the late nights at the office, the weekend emergency meetings, the sudden interest in going to our cabin alone to clear his head and work on the Johnson proposal. Always the Johnson proposal. I started finding receipts for dinners for 2 on nights he supposedly ate at his desk, charges for premium champagne when Nathan only drinks scotch. I'm not stupid, but there's knowing and then there's knowing. You understand. I needed proof before I could confront the collapse of my marriage. The confirmation came when I stopped by his office unexpectedly one Wednesday afternoon. I'd been nearby meeting a client and thought I'd surprise him with coffee. The receptionist gave me a strange look. "Nathan? He's not in today. Took a personal day. A personal day while I thought he was sitting in budgeting meetings. He'd taken a personal day." I thanked her and walked out, my coffee cup still warm in my hands. I tracked his phone that night. Not my proudest moment, but desperate times. The location. Our cabin in the mountains, our special place, the one I'd spent months perfecting. While I slept alone in our bed, he was there with someone else. But who? I wasn't certain until I checked our shared cloud storage, looking through recent cabin photos to see if he'd changed anything. That's when I saw them, pictures he'd forgotten to delete. Not explicit, thank goodness, but telling enough. A woman's jacket hanging beside his on our custom coat rack, a wine glass with lipstick on the rim, bright red, not my shade, and then a selfie of Nathan at the lake, and in the background, just visible, was Clara, looking out at the water. My fingers went numb. Not some random woman from work, but Clara, my friend, Owen's wife. I sat on our bedroom floor for what felt like hours, surrounded by the evidence, trying to decide what to do. Confront him, throw his things on the lawn, set the cabin on fire. In movies, wronged wives always seem to know exactly how to respond. In real life, betrayal leaves you frozen, questioning every memory, every moment of your marriage. Then something shifted inside me. A cold clarity washed over the pain. I stood up, dried my tears, and started to plan. This wasn't going to be a typical confrontation. If they wanted to play games, I could play too, and I would win. First, I needed to talk to Owen. The hardest part was figuring out how to approach him. How do you tell someone their spouse is having an affair with yours? There's no greeting card for that situation. I finally decided on coffee at a cafe far from our usual haunts. Neutral territory. When Owen walked in, I barely recognized him. In our group settings, he was always the loud one, the life of the party, always ready with a joke or a story. The man who sat across from me looked smaller somehow, his shoulders curved inward as if carrying an invisible weight. "I think we need to talk about Nathan and Clara," I said after the pleasantries. His eyes met mine, and I saw something I wasn't expecting. Not surprise, but resignation. "You know," I said. Not a question. He nodded, running his finger around the rim of his untouched coffee mug. "For about 3 months now." 3 months. While I was just discovering my marriage was a sham, he'd been living with this knowledge through countless dinners, game nights, and couples brunches. I felt sick. "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked. "Why didn't you?" he countered softly. "Fair point. I just found out," I admitted. "Yesterday." He let out a long breath. "I saw messages on Clara's iPad. They've been meeting at your cabin, our cabin," I corrected automatically, feeling a stab of fresh betrayal. That was my sanctuary, my creation, my safe place. Nathan had taken her there of all places. Owen looked up, his eyes suddenly sharp. "Clara thinks he's going to leave you, that they're going to start a new life together." I laughed, a harsh sound that startled both of us. "Is that what she thinks? And what about you? Just collateral damage, apparently." His smile was bitter. "I'm emotionally unavailable, too focused on work, not passionate enough. Nathan makes her feel alive." Every word was a knife twist. I couldn't help picturing them together in my cabin, in my bed, laughing about their boring, oblivious spouses. "Nathan told me last month he wanted to renovate the master bathroom at the cabin," I said quietly. "I spent weeks creating designs, drawing up plans, ordering samples. He kept saying they weren't quite right. Now I know why. She was helping him choose." Owen reached across the table and took my hand, his palm warm against my cold fingers. In that moment, something passed between us. A shared pain, yes, but also the first ember of something else. Resolve. "What do you want to do?" he asked. What did I want? I wanted to rewind time. I wanted my marriage back. I wanted to never have met Clara with her perfect hair and her bright red lipstick. I wanted to erase the image of my husband and my friend betraying me in the home I'd created. But those weren't options. So I told Owen about my plan instead. The next few weeks were a masterclass in deception. I played the oblivious wife perfectly. I smiled through dinners with Nathan, never letting on that I knew every business trip, every late night was a lie. I listened to his stories about the office, nodding sympathetically when he complained about his workload, all while a cold fury built inside me. The worst was when Clara texted, suggesting we meet for lunch. "It's been too long since we had girl time," she wrote, adding a heart emoji. The audacity. I met her at her favorite restaurant, watching as she gushed about a new dress she'd bought, how Owen never noticed her anymore, how she was thinking of taking a vacation alone to find herself, all while her phone buzzed with messages I knew were from my husband. "You should go somewhere secluded," I suggested, smiling, "someplace where you can really disconnect and focus on what you want." "That's exactly what I need," she agreed eagerly. "Just peace and nature, like a cabin in the mountains," I added. Just for a second, something flickered in her eyes. Guilt, fear, but she recovered quickly. "Maybe," I haven't decided yet. I went to the bathroom and threw up everything I'd eaten, then fixed my makeup, plastered on a smile, and went back to finish lunch with the woman who was sleeping with my husband. Meanwhile, Owen and I continued our own secret meetings. We shared information, compared timelines, built our case. We discovered that Nathan and Clara had a standing monthly weekend at our cabin, the first weekend of every month, when Nathan supposedly had his strategic planning retreats and Clara visited her sick aunt in Connecticut. Their next rendezvous was approaching, the first weekend in October, when the mountains would be ablaze with fall colors. Nathan had already started laying the groundwork, mentioning casually how he might need to go to the cabin to winterize it before the cold weather set in. "I could come with you," I offered innocently. "Make it a weekend together. It's been so long since we both went up there." No, he said quickly. Nathan had told me he was leaving directly from work around 3 p.m. to beat the traffic. Clara had told Owen she was visiting her sick aunt and would be gone until Sunday evening. I had installed security cameras at the cabin the previous year, ostensibly for safety since the property was remote, but really because I loved being able to check on my design work when we weren't there. Nathan had clearly forgotten about them. For weeks, I'd watch them arrive together, watch them enter my home, use my kitchen, drink from my glasses. The cameras captured no sound, just silent betrayal in high definition. The key to our plan was timing. We needed to arrive after they were settled, but before anything too intimate happened. I couldn't bear to walk in on that, and I didn't want to put Owen through it either. We decided on 7 p.m., enough time for them to arrive, unpack, perhaps open some wine and start dinner. The perfect domestic scene to interrupt. But there were preparations to make first, evidence to gather, and I had one more card to play that even Owen didn't know about. While Nathan thought I was at a design conference in Boston, I drove up to the cabin 2 days before their planned weekend. I had my own set of keys, of course. It was my name on the deed, after all, something Nathan seemed to have forgotten. The cabin was exactly as I'd left it, yet completely different. Knowing what had happened there changed everything. Every surface seemed contaminated. I walked through each room slowly, touching the furniture, the walls, reacquainting myself with my own property. In the master bedroom, I opened the closet and found what I was looking for. Hidden at the back behind the spare blankets, a small bag containing Clara's things, toiletries, a robe, a pair of slippers. She had established a presence in my home, created a space for herself in my life. The presumption of it all made my blood boil. I didn't remove anything. Instead, I added something. A small, discreet recording device under the bed, not for the bedroom activities. I had no interest in that kind of evidence, but for the conversations that happened in the quiet moments, the plans they made, the things they said about their spouses when they thought no one was listening. Next, I went to the study, where the cabin security system was controlled. I downloaded all the footage from the past 6 months onto a flash drive. Then I went to the filing cabinet where we kept all the cabin documentation: deed, insurance papers, utility bills. I took photos of everything with my phone, paying special attention to the deed with my name listed as sole owner. When Nathan and I had purchased the cabin, we decided to put it in my name only for tax purposes, since my business sometimes operated at a loss, a clever accounting strategy that would now serve a different purpose. The last thing I did before leaving was set up one more camera, this one aimed at the front door, capturing the perfect angle to record their faces when Owen and I arrived. I drove back to the city feeling lighter than I had in weeks. I had reclaimed something, not my marriage, but perhaps a piece of my power. The day of the confrontation, Owen and I met at a hotel just outside of town, Pine Ridge Lodge. We'd spend the night there afterward in separate rooms, of course. Neither of us wanted to return to our empty homes after what was sure to be an emotionally draining evening. "I brought something," he said, pulling a bottle of expensive champagne from his bag, "for after." "Appropriate," I noted with a grim smile. Celebrating the death of 2 marriages or the beginning of our freedom, he countered. I liked that framing better. We took my car for the drive up to the mountains, leaving his in the hotel parking lot. The fall colors were at their peak, brilliant reds and oranges painting the landscape in fire. It would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Now, it just felt like the world was burning down around us. Owen was quiet for most of the drive, staring out the window, occasionally checking his phone, where he could track Clara's location. Technology had made affairs easier to conduct, but also easier to discover. She's there, he said finally. Has been for about an hour. I nodded, keeping my eyes on the winding mountain road. Nathan, too. The security app shows 2 people entered at 5:13 p.m. Are you ready? He asked as we turned onto the private road that led to the cabin. Was I ready to confront my husband and his mistress, to end my marriage on my terms, to stand before the 2 people who had broken my heart and show them I was not destroyed? I've been ready for weeks, I replied, and realized it was true. The pain was still there, would probably always be there in some form, but alongside it now was something else. Determination, resolve, a sense that while they had taken my past, they would not determine my future. We parked just out of sight of the cabin. Through the trees, we could see warm light spilling from the windows, smoke rising from the chimney. My chimney, my fireplace, my wood, they've made themselves at home, Owen observed, his voice tight. Not for long, I promised, reaching for the champagne bottle we'd brought. It's showtime. As we walked up the path to the front door, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. This was not the end of my story. It was only the beginning of a new chapter. The look on Nathan's face when he opened the door was worth every second of pain I'd endured. Complete shock, followed by confusion, then the dawning horror of understanding. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Isabella, he finally managed. What are you? Surprise inspection, I said brightly, holding up the champagne. Hope we're not interrupting. Behind him, Clara appeared in the hallway, wrapped in my favorite throw blanket, the one I'd hand-knitted during our trip to Vermont 3 winters ago. She froze when she saw us, her face draining of color so rapidly I thought she might faint. Owen, she whispered, clutching the blanket tighter. Hello, darling, Owen replied with a calm I knew he didn't feel. Lovely evening for a visit to Connecticut, isn't it? How's your aunt? Nathan stepped back instinctively, as if physically retreating from the confrontation. I moved past him, taking in the scene. They'd been cooking salmon by the smell of it. My recipe, probably. 2 wine glasses sat on the coffee table beside a half-empty bottle of red. The fire crackled in the hearth, such a perfect, intimate setting for betrayal. Don't stop on our account, I said, walking to the kitchen and finding 2 more glasses. We brought champagne. I think a toast is in order, don't you, Isabella? I can explain, Nathan started, finding his voice, always so confident, my husband, always believing he could talk his way out of anything. Oh, I'm sure you can, I agreed, popping the champagne cork with a satisfying sound. You're very good at explanations, at stories, at lies. But before you craft another beautiful fiction, I thought we might all have a little reality check. I handed glasses to Owen and Nathan, deliberately not offering one to Clara. She could keep clutching her blanket, my blanket. What is this? Nathan demanded, finding his footing now, anger replacing shock. Some kind of ambush? Interesting word choice, Owen commented, sipping his champagne, given the circumstances. Clara finally moved, taking a few hesitant steps toward her husband. Owen, please, this isn't what it looks like. He finished for her. That's disappointing. I thought you were more creative than that. I sat down on my favorite armchair, crossing my legs, assuming the posture of a hostess entertaining difficult guests. Since we're all here, I thought we might have a discussion about property, specifically this cabin. Nathan's brow furrowed. What about it? Well, as the legal owner, I've been wondering about some unusual activities taking place here recently, I said. Legal owner? Clara echoed, looking at Nathan. The flicker of panic in my husband's eyes was delicious. He'd clearly not shared that particular detail with his mistress. Oh yes, I confirmed, pulling out my phone and showing her the photos of the deed. Sole owner, actually. Nathan and I put it in my name only when we purchased it. Tax purposes, initially. But now I'm rather grateful for the foresight. That's a technicality, Nathan snapped. We bought it together, with my inheritance money. I reminded him after my father died. Remember that time, Nathan, when I was grieving and vulnerable and you were so supportive? Was that real, I wonder, or were you just being tactical? He had the decency to look away. I turned to Clara, who had sunk onto the sofa, still clutching my blanket. Did he tell you that? That this cabin was purchased with my father's death money? Did he mention that when he was bringing you here to the place I created to heal from that loss? She shook her head, tears beginning to form. Isabella. Nathan started again, his tone shifting to the conciliatory one he used with difficult clients. This isn't productive. Why don't David and Vanessa give us some privacy to discuss? No, Owen cut in sharply. I'm not going anywhere. I smiled at him gratefully before turning back to Nathan. Besides, we're just getting to the good part, the security footage. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. I picked up the remote control and turned on the large, flat-screen TV that hung above the fireplace. With a few clicks, I accessed the cabin security system and pulled up the stored footage. I installed these cameras last year, I explained, as the screen filled with a crystal-clear image of the cabin's front entrance. For safety, I said at the time. Who would have thought they'd serve a different purpose? On screen, footage began to play. Nathan and Clara arriving together month after month, entering and leaving my home, sometimes bringing groceries, once carrying a small gift-wrapped package, a birthday present I later learned from the audio recording. There's more, I said, changing to another camera view. This one showed the back deck. There they were again, drinking wine under the stars, his arm around her shoulders. You've been spying on me. Nathan's voice was tight with anger now. No, I've been watching security footage from my own property, I corrected. Big difference, legally speaking, and these aren't even the interesting ones. I held up the flash drive I'd kept in my pocket. These are from the bedroom cameras. Clara made a small, strangled sound. You didn't. I hadn't, actually. There were no bedroom cameras. But they didn't know that. Would you like to see them? I asked pleasantly. I've edited together a highlight reel, very educational. This is invasion of privacy, Nathan sputtered, his face now flushed with anger again. My property, I reminded him, but the footage isn't even the best part. I reached into my bag and pulled out my laptop, opening it to reveal an email draft. This is a message to the partners at your firm, Nathan. Attached are selected images from the cabin cameras, along with financial records showing you charged client dinners on nights you were actually here with Clara. Expense fraud is a serious matter in investment banking, isn't it? His face went from red to ashen in seconds. You wouldn't. I haven't decided yet, I admitted. It depends on how this conversation goes. I turned to Clara next, and this one is for the board of the children's charity you chair, Clara, the one that prides itself on family values and moral leadership. I wonder how they'd feel about these images, about you using donor-funded business trips to meet your married lover. Clara began to cry in earnest now, mascara streaming down her cheeks. Please, Isabella, my reputation, my work. Your reputation, I repeated, incredulous. You're concerned about your reputation while sitting half naked in my home, having an affair with my husband. That's fascinating prioritization. Owen moved to stand beside me, a physical reinforcement of our united front. We're not here to destroy you both, he said, his voice steady, though we certainly could. What do you want? Nathan asked, defeat creeping into his tone now. We were getting somewhere. A clean, swift divorce, I stated, with the following terms. I keep the cabin, obviously, plus the apartment in the city and half of all our other assets. You admit to adultery in the filing, no irreconcilable differences, nonsense. And you both, I looked between Nathan and Clara, stay completely out of our lives going forward. And my terms are similar, Owen added. Full custody of our daughter, the house, half of everything else, and Clara publicly takes responsibility for the end of our marriage. You want to humiliate us? Clara accused, finding her voice. No, I corrected her. We want accountability. There's a difference. Nathan paced the room, his mind visibly racing through options, looking for loopholes, for ways to gain advantage. It was what made him excellent at his job, this ability to calculate odds and outcomes in real time. But this was one scenario where he held no cards. And if we refuse? He finally asked. I smiled at him gratefully before turning back to Nathan. Besides, we're just getting to the good part, the security footage. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. I picked up the remote control and turned on the large, flat-screen TV that hung above the fireplace. With a few clicks, I accessed the cabin security system and pulled up the stored footage. I installed these cameras last year, I explained, as the screen filled with a crystal-clear image of the cabin's front entrance. For safety, I said at the time. Who would have thought they'd serve a different purpose? On screen, footage began to play. Nathan and Clara arriving together month after month, entering and leaving my home, sometimes bringing groceries, once carrying a small gift-wrapped package, a birthday present I later learned from the audio recording. There's more, I said, changing to another camera view. This one showed the back deck. There they were again, drinking wine under the stars, his arm around her shoulders. You've been spying on me. Nathan's voice was tight with anger now. No, I've been watching security footage from my own property, I corrected. Big difference, legally speaking, and these aren't even the interesting ones. I held up the flash drive I'd kept in my pocket. These are from the bedroom cameras. Clara made a small, strangled sound. You didn't. I hadn't, actually. There were no bedroom cameras. But they didn't know that. Would you like to see them? I asked pleasantly. I've edited together a highlight reel, very educational. This is invasion of privacy, Nathan sputtered, his face now flushed with anger again. My property, I reminded him, but the footage isn't even the best part. I reached into my bag and pulled out my laptop, opening it to reveal an email draft. This is a message to the partners at your firm, Nathan. Attached are selected images from the cabin cameras, along with financial records showing you charged client dinners on nights you were actually here with Clara. Expense fraud is a serious matter in investment banking, isn't it? His face went from red to ashen in seconds. You wouldn't. I haven't decided yet, I admitted. It depends on how this conversation goes. I turned to Clara next, and this one is for the board of the children's charity you chair, Clara, the one that prides itself on family values and moral leadership. I wonder how they'd feel about these images, about you using donor-funded business trips to meet your married lover. Clara began to cry in earnest now, mascara streaming down her cheeks. Please, Isabella, my reputation, my work. Your reputation, I repeated, incredulous. You're concerned about your reputation while sitting half naked in my home, having an affair with my husband. That's fascinating prioritization. Owen moved to stand beside me, a physical reinforcement of our united front. We're not here to destroy you both, he said, his voice steady, though we certainly could. What do you want? Nathan asked, defeat creeping into his tone now. We were getting somewhere. A clean, swift divorce, I stated, with the following terms. I keep the cabin, obviously, plus the apartment in the city and half of all our other assets. You admit to adultery in the filing, no irreconcilable differences, nonsense. And you both, I looked between Nathan and Clara, stay completely out of our lives going forward. And my terms are similar, Owen added. Full custody of our daughter, the house, half of everything else, and Clara publicly takes responsibility for the end of our marriage. You want to humiliate us? Clara accused, finding her voice. No, I corrected her. We want accountability. There's a difference. Nathan paced the room, his mind visibly racing through options, looking for loopholes, for ways to gain advantage. It was what made him excellent at his job, this ability to calculate odds and outcomes in real time. But this was one scenario where he held no cards. And if we refuse? He finally asked. I smiled, a genuine smile that seemed to unnerve him more than anger would have. Then the emails go out tonight, and tomorrow we call our lawyers and begin the messiest, most public divorce proceedings imaginable. Every detail of your affair becomes public record. Every expense report gets audited. Every weekend at this cabin gets documented and time-stamped. I leaned forward. Is that really how you want to start your new life together, under that kind of scrutiny? The silence that followed was thick with tension. Nathan and Clara exchanged looks, a silent communication that stabbed at my heart despite everything. They still had that connection, that unspoken language, but now it was being used to navigate their downfall rather than plot their escape. I need to think, Nathan finally said. You have until morning, I replied. Owen and I are staying at Pine Ridge Lodge. We'll expect your answer by 9 a.m. You're throwing us out? Clara looked panicked. Tonight? It's almost dark. Yes, we are, Owen confirmed. Pack your things. All of your things, he added pointedly, looking at the small bag I'd found in the closet. Nathan opened his mouth as if to argue, then closed it again. The fight had gone out of him. He knew when he was outmaneuvered. One more thing, I said, standing and walking to the liquor cabinet. I removed a small package that I'd hidden there during my earlier visit and handed it to Nathan. Happy anniversary. His face crumpled as he recognized the gift. Our wedding anniversary was next week, 13 years. The traditional gift was lace. Inside the package was a delicate lace handkerchief I'd had embroidered with our initials months ago, before I knew about the affair. I guess you won't be needing this after all, I said softly. As Nathan and Clara gathered their things in defeated silence, I stood on the deck with Owen, watching the last light fade from the autumn sky. The mountains stretched before us, ablaze with color even in the dusk. Are you okay? He asked, his shoulder warm against mine in the chilly evening air. No, I admitted, but I will be. Behind us, the cabin door closed. A car engine started. The sound of tires on gravel faded into the distance, and just like that, they were gone. Owen and I looked at each other in the gathering darkness, champagne glasses still in hand. To new beginnings, he said, raising his glass. To taking back what's ours, I replied, touching my glass to his. The crystal rang clear and true in the mountain silence. 1 year later, I stood on that same deck, watching the same mountains blaze with autumn colors. The air had the same crisp quality, the sky that same impossible blue, yet everything was different. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago. Nathan hadn't fought the terms. After all, the evidence I'd gathered was too damning, the potential professional consequences too severe. He'd signed everything with a subdued resignation that was, in its way, more satisfying than anger would have been. Clara and Owen's split had been messier. She'd tried to contest the custody arrangement for their daughter, Sophie, but the evidence of her extended absences during the affair worked against her. In the end, she'd moved to Denver to start fresh, leaving behind a trail of broken relationships and damaged reputations. I'd heard through mutual friends that Nathan and Clara hadn't lasted 3 months after the confrontation. The foundation of deceit that had supported their relationship couldn't sustain the weight of public scrutiny and private resentment. She blamed him for losing custody. He blamed her for costing him his partnership track after the firm quietly demoted him, following anonymous tips about expense irregularities. Their grand love story, built in the shadow of betrayal, had crumbled in the harsh light of consequence. As for me, the year had been a journey through grief, rage, acceptance, and finally rebuilding. I'd thrown myself into my design business, rebranding and expanding. I'd reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during my marriage, rediscovered passions I'd set aside, and I'd spent a lot of time at the cabin. At first, it was painful. Every room held memories I couldn't escape. But gradually, I reclaimed each space. I repainted the bedroom, replaced the furniture, burned that throw blanket in a ceremonial bonfire under a full moon. I exorcised their presence from my sanctuary. The sound of footsteps behind me pulled me from my thoughts. Owen appeared with 2 mugs of coffee, handing one to me with a smile that still made my heart skip despite everything we'd been through. "Sophie's finally asleep," he said, leaning against the railing beside me. The mountain air knocked her out. I smiled, thinking of the 6-year-old girl curled up in the cabin's second bedroom, surrounded by the stuffed animals she insisted on bringing for our weekend trip. She loves it here. So do I, Owen admitted, his eyes meeting mine with the quiet understanding we'd developed over the past year. We hadn't planned this, whatever this was between us. After the confrontation, we'd maintained contact mainly to coordinate the divorce proceedings, to ensure our stories aligned, to present that united front. But somewhere along the way, coffee meetings to discuss legal strategies had evolved into dinners where we talked about everything but our exes, movie nights, hiking trips, a tentative kiss 6 months ago that had surprised us both with its rightness. We weren't living together. We were both too raw, too cautious for that level of commitment, but we were building something honest and real, one careful step at a time. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, noticing my contemplative mood. "Everything, nothing." I sipped my coffee, letting the warmth spread through me. "How different everything is from this time last year." He nodded, understanding. "Do you regret any of it? How we handled things?" I considered the question carefully. Did I regret the confrontation, the ultimatums, the public nature of the divorce? "No," I said finally. I needed to take back control, to end things on my terms, not theirs. I turned to face him fully. They were writing us out of our own stories, Owen, making us the discarded spouses, the obstacles to their happiness. I couldn't accept that ending. "So you rewrote it," he said with a small smile. "We rewrote it," I corrected him. "Both of us." He set his mug down on the railing and took my hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on my palm. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't caught them, if they just continued their affair in secret?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "I might still be living in ignorance, planning anniversary trips, renovating bathrooms, never understanding why Nathan seemed so distant. Would that have been better?" I shook my head firmly. Living a lie isn't living. I'd rather face a painful truth than an easy deception. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled in the hearth. Through the window, I could see the glow of the flames, warm and inviting. Last autumn, this cabin had been the setting for our confrontation, a place of anger and broken trust. Now it was becoming something else, a place of healing, of new beginnings. "You know," Owen said thoughtfully, "I keep thinking about the expression on Clara's face when we walked in together. I've never seen someone look so utterly shocked." I laughed, the sound echoing across the darkening mountains. Nathan looked like he'd seen a ghost, or 2 ghosts, specifically. "They never imagined we'd figure it out, let alone team up," Owen said, shaking his head. "That was their biggest mistake, underestimating us both." "Among many mistakes," I added, leaning my head against his shoulder. We stood in comfortable silence, watching as the first stars appeared in the twilight sky. Inside, Sophie slept peacefully, untouched by the drama that had brought us all to this point. She knew only that her daddy had a new friend who made pancakes in funny shapes and taught her how to identify wildflowers on mountain trails. "I bought the cabin outright," I said suddenly. "The papers came through yesterday. It's officially mine alone." Owen turned to me, eyebrows raised. "That's wonderful. I know how much this place means to you." "It means something different now," I replied. "It's not just a retreat anymore. It's a reminder that sometimes you have to face the worst moment of your life head on to find your way to something better." He slipped his arm around my waist. "Are we something better?" "I think we're getting there," I answered honestly. "One weekend trip at a time." As the night deepened around us, I thought about the strange, twisting path that had led us here, how betrayal had opened the door to authenticity, how loss had created space for something new to grow. Nathan and Clara had stolen moments in this place, building their relationship on lies and deception. Owen and I were building ours in the open, foundational stones of honesty laid one by one, strengthened by shared understanding of pain and recovery. "Let's go inside," I suggested, picking up our empty mugs. "It's getting cold." Hand in hand, we walked back into the cabin, my cabin, leaving the past outside in the darkness where it belonged. Some might call it poetic justice, but I prefer to think of it as reclamation. We had taken back our stories, our dignity, and this mountain sanctuary, and in doing so, we'd discovered that sometimes the end of one story is merely the beginning of a better one. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. And when you're ready for the next story, just click on the box to your left. Thank you for listening.